faithfully conveying value, interpreting great books worldwide. Hello, this is Sally's Book Club. Today we're exploring the book Becoming Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir was a renowned French writer, existentialist philosopher, and iconic feminist figure. When mentioning Beauvoir, people usually recall two things. First, her work, The Second Sex. This book is hailed as the Bible for women. In contemporary feminist discussions, The Second Sex remains an essential classic. Second, her relationship with famous French existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. They were lifelong partners, and their open relationship remains controversial. But Beauvoir's life extends far beyond these two labels. This book reveals a more authentic and multi-dimensional Beauvoir beyond those simplifications. She wasn't just a feminist, but a profound philosopher. She wasn't merely Sartre's partner, but an independent thinker with a rich personality. From her youth, she pondered, in a patriarchal society, could there be a new way for women to enjoy success, freedom, and love? Her life's turbulence and controversial relationships embody her exploration of this question. Veiled as the definitive Beauvoir biography, author Kate Kirkpatrick, an expert on Beauvoir and Sartre, directs Oxford's Regent Park College Philosophy Research Center. Kate meticulously organized exclusive materials, including Beauvoir's student diaries and 2018 revealed love letters. Published in 2019, with a Chinese edition in 2021, this 285,000-word work chronicles Beauvoir's life across 16 chapters. Wow. The UK's Sunday Times praised Becoming Beauvoir as richly detailed, compelling, yet best-savored slowly. But it deserves slow appreciation of this woman who inspired global feminism and transformed thinking. Ireland's Observer called it exceptional, transcending earlier misogynistic biographies to reveal her complex, revolutionary life. So let's follow the book to understand Beauvoir's journey of striving to become herself. Her extraordinary life can essentially be divided into three stages. The first stage is one of seeking, where she embraced philosophy as her life's purpose and philosophically explored love and relationships. The second stage is her period of fruition. During this time, Beauvoir wrote her two most significant works, The Second Sex and The Mandarins, and the third stage is her later years. During this era, Beauvoir actively participated in political and social movements, embodying her existentialist philosophy. First, let's delve into the first part. Beauvoir's seeking period, her youth. Born in 1908 in Paris to a wealthy family, her father, Georges de Beauvoir, hailed from Burgundy nobility, and her mother, Françoise Brasseur, was from a prosperous background. As the eldest daughter, she loved reading from a young age, and her parents actively encouraged her interest. Books not only gave her knowledge, but also instilled grand ambitions, wanting to make a mark in the world as she grew older. By age 11, Beauvoir was captivated by Jo, the protagonist in Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. She thought Jo wasn't the prettiest or the most affectionate of the four sisters, but Jo's zeal for learning and drive to write shone like a beacon, guiding her own aspirations. Like Jo, Beauvoir buried herself in books, devouring works on religion, history, and literature. Yet, young Beauvoir began to sense an imbalance, a gender inequality. At age 12, her father proudly declared, "Simone has a man's mind. She thinks like a man. She's like a man." Beauvoir retorted, "Even so, people treat me as a girl." Her father, while praising her, admired intelligent women yet disliked female intellectuals and women fighting for rights. This placed Beauvoir in a difficult dilemma. As a woman, to succeed, she needed a solid education and accomplishments. But at the same time, her education couldn't be too advanced, nor could she achieve too much. As a teenager, the thoughtful Beauvoir naturally became fascinated with philosophy. Then she realized that being a woman pursuing philosophy presented an even harsher dilemma, because philosophy begins with knowing yourself and achieving self-fulfillment. However, in Beauvoir's era, women were meant to be wives, mothers, homemakers, not themselves. If a man is destined to become himself, a woman is destined to feel divided, forced to sacrifice while fighting for freedom. As a woman, could she avoid this division? Could a woman be both successful and feminine? Could she have both freedom and love? And for Beauvoir herself, could she be both a woman and a philosopher? Young Beauvoir didn't know the answers but was determined to try. At 19, she wrote in her diary, "Academic success makes me lonely and lost at life's crossroads, yet I feel valuable."
What do I have to say?
What should I do?
She told herself. Be yourself. Don't chase externally imposed goals or conform to social structures. That year, she earned advanced qualifications in philosophy, history, and introduction to philosophy, embracing existentialism. According to Martin Heidegger, existentialism's founder, our existence defines the world. We're thrown into it but have freedom to choose. Beauvoir carried forward Heidegger's vision. She believed choice and freedom were paramount. In her diary, she wrote, "Only through free choices and adaptability can one's true self emerge." Faithfully conveying value, interpreting great books worldwide. Hello, this is Sally's Book Club. Today we're exploring Becoming Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir was a renowned French writer, existentialist philosopher, and iconic feminist figure. When mentioning Beauvoir, people usually recall two things. First, her work, The Second Sex. This book is hailed as the Bible for women. In contemporary feminist discussions, The Second Sex remains an essential classic. Second, her relationship with famous French existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. They were lifelong partners, and their open relationship remains controversial.
But Beauvoir's life extends far beyond being the author of The Second Sex or Sartre's partner.
This book reveals a more authentic and multidimensional Beauvoir beyond those simplifications. She wasn't just a feminist, but a profound philosopher. She wasn't merely Sartre's companion, but an independent thinker with a rich personality. From her youth, she pondered, in a patriarchal society, could there be a new way for women to enjoy success, freedom, and love? Her life's turbulence and controversial relationships embody her lifelong exploration of this question. Hailed as the definitive Beauvoir biography, author Kate Kirkpatrick, an expert on Beauvoir and Sartre, directs Oxford's Regent Park College Philosophy Research Center. But Kate meticulously organized exclusive materials, including Beauvoir's student diaries and 2018 revealed love letters. Published in 2019 with a Chinese edition in 2021, this 285,000-word work chronicles Beauvoir's life across 16 chapters. The UK Sunday Times praised Becoming Beauvoir as richly detailed, compelling yet best savored slowly. But it deserves slow appreciation of this woman who inspired global feminism and transformed thinking.
Island's Observer called it exceptional, transcending earlier misogynistic biographies to reveal her complex, revolutionary life.
So let's follow the book to understand Beauvoir's journey of striving to become herself. Her extraordinary life can essentially be divided into three stages. The first stage is one of seeking, where she embraced philosophy as her life's purpose and philosophically explored love and relationships. The second stage is her period of fruition. During this time, Beauvoir wrote her two most significant works, The Second Sex and the Mandarins, and the third stage is her later years. During this era, Beauvoir actively participated in political and social movements, embodying her existentialist philosophy. First, let's delve into the seeking period. Beauvoir's youth. Born in 1908 in Paris to wealth. Her father, Georges de Beauvoir, descended from Burgundy nobility, mother, Françoise Brasseur, from affluence. As the eldest daughter, she adored reading from childhood, encouraged by her parents. Books not only provided knowledge but instilled grand ambitions. She yearned to make her mark. By age 11, Beauvoir was captivated by Jo, the protagonist in Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. She felt Jo wasn't the prettiest or most affectionate sister. But Jo's passion for learning and writing shone like a beacon, guiding her own path. Like Jo, Beauvoir immersed herself in books, devouring religion, history, and literature. Yet, young Beauvoir began sensing discord, a gender inequality. At 12, her father proudly declared, "Simone has a man's mind. She thinks like a man. She's like a man," Beauvoir retorted. "Even so, people treat me as a girl." Her father admired intelligent women, yet disliked female intellectuals and women fighting for rights. This placed her in a difficult dilemma. As a woman, to succeed required solid education and accomplishments. Yet her education couldn't be too advanced, nor her achievements too great. As a thoughtful teenager, she naturally became fascinated with philosophy. Then she realized, pursuing philosophy as a woman presented an even harsher dilemma, because philosophy begins with knowing and fulfilling oneself. However, in Beauvoir's time, women were expected to be wives, mothers, homemakers, not themselves. If a man is destined to become himself, a woman is destined to feel divided, forced to sacrifice while fighting for freedom against deprivation. Trudging! As a woman, could she avoid this division? Could a woman be both successful and feminine? Could she have both freedom and love? And for Beauvoir herself, could she be both a woman and a philosopher? Young Beauvoir didn't know the answers, but was determined to try. At 19, she wrote in her diary, "Academic success makes me lonely and lost at life's crossroads, yet I feel valuable. What do I have to say? What should I do?"
She told herself, "Be yourself. Don't chase externally imposed goals or conform to social structures."
That year, she earned advanced qualifications in philosophy, history, and introduction to philosophy, embracing existentialism. According to Martin Heidegger, existentialism's founder, our existence defines the world. We're thrown into it but have freedom to choose. Beauvoir carried forward Heidegger's vision. She believed choice and freedom were paramount. In her diary, she wrote, "Only through free choices and adaptability can one's true self emerge." For instance, in 1938, Beauvoir became lovers with student Bianca. Sartre joined, sleeping with 17-year-old Bianca, her first sexual experience. Though Bianca loved Beauvoir. When Bianca realized Beauvoir loved Sartre more, she broke down. Beauvoir, shocked, urged Bianca to make herself life's center and connect with her true self. But this proved too difficult for an inexperienced young woman. Over a year later, Beauvoir and Sartre broke up with Bianca, causing her severe mental health issues. Beauvoir admitted that she and Sartre caused Bianca too much pain.
She wrote to Sartre, "I blame myself, and I blame you."
In fact, our approach to others has always been problematic. We shouldn't have made Bianca suffer so. Beauvoir realized her essential relationship with Sartre hurt their contingent lovers, leading her to different conclusions about human connections than Sartre, and both shared existentialism's core. We inhabit a meaningless universe where existence itself lacks purpose.
But Sartre saw human existence as solitary, while Beauvoir believed only through others can we achieve goals, uphold values, and change the world.
This philosophical divergence manifested in their treatment of others. Sartre believed all relationships involve one person as the subject, the dominant role, and the other as the object, the dominated role. Human relationships are always about domination and subjugation, never equal interaction. Or countered that true self-respect requires respecting others' freedom and exercising it morally. In a later U.S. fashion magazine interview, Sartre said he avoided emotional exchanges, engaging only with reflective thinkers, while Beauvoir connected emotionally, immediately. People were drawn to her precisely because of what she said. Sadly, such introspection didn't change Beauvoir's real-life behavior.
In 1941, she became lovers with student Nathalie, reported by the girl's mother.
After an 18-month investigation, the Education Ministry revoked her teaching license. Beauvoir was 35 that year. Her youth had faded. Overall, Beauvoir's seeking period wasn't particularly glorious. She was an obscure philosophy teacher who wrote 2 novels, She Came to Stay and The Blood of Others, while teaching, though both received little attention then. Despite extensive reading and reflection during that time, her most notable actions were romantic affairs, experimenting with different relationships with men and women. However, soon after, Beauvoir entered a burst of thought and creativity. Next, let's explore the second stage of Beauvoir's life. This fruitful period basically began in 1943 when Beauvoir was 35 and ended in 1955 when she was 47. During this time, she published her two most important works, The Second Sex and the Mandarins. In 1943, after being dismissed from her teaching post, Beauvoir returned from Marseille to Paris and began writing full-time. However, since writing didn't guarantee stable income, she also took a job as a radio producer for a program on medieval music. That same year, Sartre published his magnum opus, Being and Nothingness, cementing his status as an existentialist philosophy master. From then on, Beauvoir also published two existentialist philosophical works and a novel, Pyrrhus and Cineas. The Ethics of Ambiguity and All Men Are Mortal, all three works were well received. Thus, Beauvoir earned the title Queen of Existentialism, but objectively, these works couldn't compare to Being and Nothingness. Media attention often stemmed from her relationship with Sartre. Some tabloids even called her the Great Sartrean, or Sartre's Madonna. Beauvoir didn't write dense philosophical tomes to prove herself further. Well, instead, she turned to explore a very specific issue closely tied to her own situation. That is, what does it mean for me to be a woman? This is a question she had pondered since her youth. As an adult, she realized philosophers always explored humanity and human conditions, but ignored women and women's conditions. So, what exactly does it mean to be a woman? In 1949, Beauvoir published The Second Sex, hailed as the most comprehensive, rational, and insightful book on women ever written, and it was her answer to her younger self in middle age. As we at Sally's Book Club previously covered, The Second Sex is a monumental work that embodies Beauvoir's personal character and experiences. But 88 is the best. In The Second Sex, there's a famous quote, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman." Beauvoir believed that woman is not a fixed reality, but a process of becoming. Emphasizing the concept of becoming shows Beauvoir's fundamental stance as an existentialist philosopher, that people shape and achieve themselves through constant choices and changes. In the book, Beauvoir explores the division and contradictions that modern women are destined to face. She wrote that career women often feel inferior to other women because they believe they lack charm and sensitivity, but men never need to sacrifice their success for masculinity or give up personal achievements to feel comfortable. This contradiction faced by women remains unresolved to this day. Beauvoir's own rich emotional experiences made the discussion on love a particularly brilliant chapter in The Second Sex. Beauvoir pointed out that men remain the supreme subjects in love. Love is an inseparable part of their lives, but only a part. But for women, love is life. A woman must be loved by a man to have value. This fallacy of love continually reinforces women's subordinate status. In the view of this book's author, although Second Sex uses a heterosexual framework to describe love, Beauvoir's writing inspiration likely came more from her own interactions with women, especially her story with Bianca. And Bianca once wrote in a love letter, she said, "You are my life. I belong completely to you." This expression made Beauvoir perceive the all-or-nothing devotion women have in love. In Beauvoir's vision, women can love as subjects. They can show their strength in love, not weakness. She no longer needs to escape herself in love but find herself, no longer give up herself for love but affirm herself. The Second Sex. Her disruptive views on gender relations and social status, and her candid discussion of women's sexual psychology and behavior brought her a flood of criticism. Readers called her lustful, debauched, a nymphomaniac. The Vatican listed The Second Sex as a banned book. A columnist said, that Beauvoir was annoyed by her own inferiority complex, and even Albert Camus, a fellow existentialist thinker, accused her of making French men look ridiculous, with people especially angry about the book. Regarding motherhood, Beauvoir pointed out that women should not be reduced to tools for reproduction. At that time, post-War I France faced a sharp population decline and desperately needed more citizens. Beauvoir's critical stance on motherhood made her a target of public criticism.
Critics said, Beauvoir, you've never had children yourself. How dare you discuss this sacred topic?
Beauvoir responded that not being a mother never stopped men from discussing motherhood. That said, criticism and attacks aren't necessarily bad for Western intellectuals. They often prove one's success and influence. The second sex made Beauvoir famous, establishing her alongside Sartre as France's most prominent intellectuals. In Paris, people would stare at Beauvoir and Sartre in cafes, and photographers openly snapped them on streets. Ironically, just as this philosophical power couple peaked in fame, their romantic relationship neared collapse. In 1945, during a U.S. visit, Sartre met Dolores Vanetti, a woman who utterly captivated him.
He fell madly in love with Dolores and even proposed to her.
Meanwhile, during a 1947 U.S. trip, Beauvoir met American writer Nelson Algren. They fell passionately in love at first sight. Algren gave Beauvoir a Mexican ring. He later proposed via letter, but Beauvoir ultimately didn't marry him. Many interpreted this as her still loving Sartre more. But this book's author, after extensive research, argues Algren was Beauvoir's most passionate love, yet she refused to abandon herself for love by leaving Paris. She wrote to Algren, "I cannot live solely for happiness and love. I cannot give up writing and working in Paris. Only there do my writing and work have meaning." Beauvoir loved work too intensely. She often spent over 8 hours daily reading and writing. She wrote to Algren, "Perhaps I do everything a bit too intensely. Whether it's work, travel, or love, but that's my way. I'd rather do nothing than do things moderately." Similarly, Algren refused to cross the Atlantic for love. Their passion gradually faded. After that painful love affair, Beauvoir started writing a novel. Its progress was much slower than she expected. Later on, she even called the work "that damn monster of a dirty novel." And it wasn't until 1954 that the novel was finally published. The title was The Mandarins. This book became Beauvoir's most successful work in her lifetime, not only a bestseller, but also winning France's highest literary honor, the Prix Goncourt, just 1 month after publication. Tassa, the success of The Mandarins also greatly improved Beauvoir's financial situation. She used the Prix Goncourt prize money to buy a studio apartment. To many, The Mandarins is seen as an autobiographical novel. The novel depicts the lives of famous intellectuals in Paris's left bank after World War II. In it, Anne is Beauvoir, Robert is Sartre, Henri is Camus, and an American named Louis is clearly based on Algren. However, Beauvoir herself expressed disappointment with this simplistic interpretation. She emphasized, "The Mandarins is a true work of fiction that explores a philosophical question, the fundamental conflict between existence and nothingness." Through the characters, Beauvoir wanted to show how people struggle with doubt and hope, groping in the dark to find a way out. As for why she used a novel to present philosophy rather than writing a philosophical book directly, Beauvoir explained that philosophical works are often too abstract, imposing the author's views on readers and forcing them to accept, whereas literature offers an imaginative experience, inviting readers into specific situations to freely understand and think. From Beauvoir's explanation, we can see she wanted her work and ideas to be accessible to readers, understood and accepted by the general public. Therefore, the publication of The Mandarins was both the peak of her career and a mark of her transformation. Over the past 12 years, Beauvoir wrote her most important works, and in the years to come, she would draw closer to the public. Finally, in this last part, we'll explore Beauvoir's later years. 1955 was a significant year in Beauvoir's life. It marked Beauvoir's transformation from an elite cultural figure, somewhat aloof and lofty, to a public intellectual fully engaged in political and social movements. And that year, the Algerian War of Independence erupted, seeking freedom from French rule. Beauvoir unequivocally supported Algerian independence and was accused of treason against France. But to Beauvoir, intellectuals must urge readers to strive for freedom and justice. The same year, Beauvoir and Sartre traveled to China, attending the 6th anniversary celebration of the People's Republic. Her China trip made her recognize the privileges Westerners possessed. But after returning, she wrote a book about China titled The Long March. As she aged, Beauvoir grew dissatisfied with merely writing subversive theories. She turned more toward real-world feminist activism. To better understand ordinary women's thoughts, she dedicated an hour daily to correspond with readers. In replies, she encouraged them to see the world through their own eyes and find meaning in their lives. Additionally, Beauvoir campaigned for legal abortion rights, divorce reform, and founded the Women's Rights League in 1974 to advocate for anti-discrimination laws. The League's manifesto declared, "Women's bodies shouldn't be commodified. Sexual pleasure and agency shouldn't be male privileges. Degrading female images shouldn't appear in ads, pornography, or literature." In her later years, Beauvoir had two significant relationships, one with Jewish filmmaker Claude Lanzmann and another with student Sylvie Le Bon. Yet Sartre remained foremost in her heart. Speaking of Sartre, she echoed what she'd said at 21 when they first met. "Sartre's incomparable and unique to me." Sartre repeatedly emphasized Beauvoir's centrality in his life and thoughts, calling her his intellectual equal and the only person who truly understood him. As they aged, Beauvoir began studying old age, again choosing a subject deeply relevant to her own life. In 1970, Beauvoir's The Coming of Age was published, quickly becoming a bestseller. She pointed out that not all aging is difficult and painful. Like becoming a woman, aging varies greatly. It depends on physiological, psychological, economic, and social factors. In 1974, Beauvoir participated in filming a documentary about aging issues. In the documentary's final scene, Beauvoir strolls through a cemetery, saying she no longer fears death as she did in youth. At 30, she couldn't calmly imagine vanishing from the earth. Approaching 80, she found herself fearing and resenting an unknown life more than life's end. On April 15, 1980, Sartre died. Beauvoir rushed to the hospital, swarmed by reporters, demanding to be alone with him. Afterward, she climbed onto Sartre's bed and lay beside him for hours. At Sartre's funeral, Beauvoir was supported by two friends. Despite an overdose of sedatives, she couldn't stop the flood of tears. A week later, hospitalized from overwhelming grief, she turned to writing to channel her emotions. She wrote a book about Sartre's death titled Adieu, A Farewell to Sartre. In its preface, she wrote, "This is my first, undoubtedly only, book you haven't read before publication. I dedicate it wholly to you. You remain untouched by it." And when I say you, it's hypothetical, a rhetorical device. For now, I speak only into the void. In 1986, Beauvoir died at age 78. Like Sartre, she was buried in Paris's Montparnasse Cemetery. This is the resting place for many French intellectual elites. Poet Baudelaire and writer Maupassant both lie here. At burial, Beauvoir wore a red headscarf, red bathrobe, and Algren's ring.
At the funeral, people chanted feminist E.L. Elias Abdinter's eulogy line. "Women, you owe her everything." And here we conclude. Becoming Beauvoir, we've explored her extraordinary life.
As a woman, she lived unrestrained by prejudice or convention, becoming feminism's ideal role model by living entirely on her own terms. Maybe some of Beauvoir's actions or ideas feel too radical for you to accept. But know that Beauvoir herself never claimed perfection. In fact, she despised it, finding flawless heroes terrifying. Books with flawless protagonists are boring. Whether fiction or life, existence should be messy. For Beauvoir, the core was being oneself, an irreversible process of choices and becoming, both her philosophy and lived reality. She saw herself as perpetual metamorphoses because life offers no moment of total reconciliation. Every action risks failure, and some failures only reveal themselves in hindsight. Time flows, dreams shift, and the true self stays just out of reach. As this book's author notes, we'll never truly know Beauvoir's innermost thoughts. But externally, we must remember how fiercely she fought to become herself. All right, that concludes our exploration of Becoming Beauvoir. Find reading notes below the audio. Until next time.